but they didn't like your politics, bam, cut you right off. Well, what are you going to do? I can always convert this to any of the current fiat money system. That's easy peasy.
So let's bring it back because, like I said, you've been tweeting hashtag got gold, got gold, got gold. Why do you see gold as a solution here?
Because it's the only financial instrument that runs no counterparty risk, and everything that we're dealing with is all of this counterparty risk. It's the only financial asset that truly is invisible. Once you hold it, you own it outright, and it is proven for 6,000 years to fight inflation. It is proven to be, I mean, the Bank for International Settlements, gold held at home runs no political risk.
So I guess what do you say to the folks, especially the cryptocurrency lovers, who will say, well, gold's just been dead money for 10 years, Lynette. I mean, the price hasn't moved.
Well, first of all, that's inaccurate. However, you know, look, the people that love crypto and the people that love gold are really, they have the same mindset, and I get it. This is proven, and I'm sorry, but when I read that 1996 NSA white paper, which is a government agency on how to create a mint, describing this whole crypto market, and I look at Wall Street and I look at the level of adoption, one thing I know, I'm not an engineer, I don't understand cryptos, but I have studied currency life cycles and their transitions into new currencies since 1987. And every single time, I mean, there are repeatable patterns. And a key one that I would say is that they allow people to, the general population, to make money as they're making this transition so that people go along with it. Look at the roaring 20s. Look at the greedy 80s. And look at the 2020s. That's a
It,
common
it,
thread.
it's interesting, and that's something that E.B. Tucker, another one of our guests who has says that they're almost preparing us for the coming digital dollar. Is that how you see it?
100%.
And how far away is that reality for you?
You know, what I know, timing is the biggest challenge. But what I do know is that a lot of things have to shift in 2023, including somewhere around 610 trillion in notional derivative contracts that are tied to LIBOR shifting into SOFR. And they're forcing that shift, even though when they ran that test in October, I think it was 2019, might have been 2020, I'm sorry about that. But when they ran that test with 80 trillion, it was a big fat fail. And you know that because got really silent, and then 3 weeks later they postponed it until 2023. And LIBOR does not work like, or rather SOFR does not work like LIBOR. So, I hope we have more time than that, but I could definitely see a crisis maybe a little bit before 2023 or in 2023.
That
And
fast tracks it?
mhm.
Since you are a currency expert, Lynette, curious, and especially one that studies lifespans of the currencies. Let's go back to the US dollar a second. There's a lot of talk about the future of the US dollar as the reserve currency. Given the situation of Russia, Ukraine, we're seeing countries like Saudi Arabia looking outside of the US dollar system, Israel now. So, what direction do you see this headed in?
Well, I think that the SDR is the most likely candidate to take over as the world reserve currency. So all of those dollars that are held in all of those foreign central banks, I mean, that's got to come home. And the way that they'll most likely do it is by depositing them into the IMF's International Monetary Fund's the special account that they set up to convert dollar assets into SDR assets. So that in theory, the IMF can determine the speed at which the dollars come back to the U.S. But yeah, we're going to suffer the most in the U.S. because we're losing that status.
Right. And so, I always want to be able to empower our viewers, educate them, give them the tools in preparation for the landscape that you see coming, right?
Oh, wow,
So
yeah.
if we had to really give like takeaway advice, right? Real things we can do after this interview. What are, three things you'd be looking at?
Well, I would definitely be securing any wealth that I hold in the system, with gold and also physical silver. Okay, so you definitely need those in your possession. Secondly, food becomes the single biggest issue for people through this transition. So you need to secure your food source. I've done gardens, but there's all different ways that you can do it. But you definitely, absolutely, 100% need to secure your food. And only three. If I only get three, then the third one would be community. And I'm not sure that shouldn't be, maybe not the first one, but I mean, definitely
Up there. Yeah.
coming together with your neighbors, making sure you know your neighbors, making sure that you are part of a community, maybe in a community garden is great, so that you have a variety of skill sets
Yeah.
to come together and help each other through this mess.
Absolutely. And so sad that that sense of community, I believe, is the greatest loss of, that happened during, of course, besides lives, but during the pandemic, right, Lynette, that we lost that sense of community.
Yes, and I mean, things have changed. I remember back in the 70s, you knew your neighbors. Everybody was, the doors
Of
were
course.
open, everybody
Right.
was in and out of everybody else's house. And since the 70s, really, these things are planned, and you can look at the breakdown in the family system, in a lot of the systems to divide us. And with all of the technology, there's a lot of great things about technology, but there's also some things that are not great. I know I look at my grandkids. Well, we
Yeah.
used to meet with our friends like every day if we could and hang out with them and do stuff and what have you. Well, I go over to their house and they're all on their computers like, don't you want to go play with your friends or get together with your friends? Or like, well, we are.
Yeah.
We're on the computer. It's
No.
very
Yeah.
different. And so, yeah, the breakdown of
I have
community.
I have a no iPad rule in this house for the kids, so that speaks to me right there. But getting back to your first point, because I know we've spoken about this, and I know it resonated with so many audience members about diversifying outside of the system, and I think it's a good point to bring up that you always think, well, am I really gonna have to? Do I really need to? Is it really gonna happen? And just look at what's happening in Ukraine, where people weren't able to access cash, right? And they had to use, whether you're a believer or not in cryptos or the metals, but they had to go outside the system,
Right. And look at
right?
Canada.
And look at
Okay,
Canada.
that
That's
was a
right.
war. Well, is Canada inside of a war? No. But they didn't like your politics? Bam, cut you right off. Well, what are you going to
Yeah.
do? I can always convert this to any of the current fiat money system. That's easy peasy.